Okay. So let me share the screen. Are you on your computer or on your mother's?
I'm actually on my phone. Is there a way you could send me a link and you can open what we're reading?
Yeah, I'm going to. Uh, I was just going to say, I'm just going to increase the font of the page so that you can read it a little bit easier on the phone.
Oh, okay.
So here is, let me share the screen here. This is Anacheta 123. Can you see that?
Um, yep.
Hold on. Let me just increase the you see it a little bit better now?
Yep. I can see that pretty good.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, I'm just going to read. We're going to take turns reading. And if it's a short sentence, then you can read two. I'll let you know. But I'm going to read the first paragraph. This is from Krishna Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. He's very scholarly, this Goswami. Of course, they're all followers of Rupa, who's, we follow. This movement is known as Rupanugas. We're followers of Rupa Goswami. So he was the head guy. He got all of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and he was able to write, and understand his mind. That's why before every class, they have part of the Mandala Charana prayers. They say, I have this on my wall actually. It says, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayanda Dati Swapatandikam, which means, when will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So we're all followers of Rupa Goswami, and there are six of them. Jiva is one of the most scholarly. They wrote a ton of literature. And, I read all of Prabhupada's books, and I was getting an anxiety because I was wondering, what am I going to read next? I don't know if you've
Mm.
ever had that inkling that you want to read more and more. And, I was like a genie out of the bottle, especially during the pandemic. I didn't have anything to do, so I was just addicted to reading. And so I thought to myself, oh, what am I going to read? And then I thought, oh, after Prabhupada's books, there's like Ramayana, the Mahabharata, like you're reading the Mahabharata right now, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. It's
then I
excellent.
thought, oh, wait a minute, there's a Goswami literature. And I know that there's like a ton of stuff in their portfolio. So this
Yeah.
is on,
Actually, I want to read all of that eventually. You know.
yeah, well, you're pretty young. You might be able to do it. I mean, if you go to any college or library, you'll see that the Vedas constitute a row of books, not just a few shelves, a row of from floor to ceiling. They're not all Prabhupada's books or all exactly in our Sampradaya, and you have to be a little careful because some of these books were translated and commented on by Christians who had an axe to grind with the Vedic tradition. So you have to be kind of careful when you're Uh, the person that feeds me my audiobooks is his name is Adi Prusha. He's a Ukrainian devotee that works for the BBT. Whenever I run out of books to read, I always ask him what should I read next, and he sends me all these books.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's a pretty good. I can send you a link to all the books that I can send you
Yeah,
actual
that'd
books,
be
but I
great.
know you like the printed word. You like it on paper, right? You don't like the PDF file.
Well, no, not necessarily. I really like read off my phone because the utility of being able to look up definitions and names and do research on further research on what's being said. It's so easy to do it on my phone. I prefer it that way, but I like to collect a hard copy just in case like the internet's not working. And
Right.
I'd like to at least read all the Sattvika Puranas, the four Vedas, um, and well, I've read the original Valmiki Ramayana, and I've read the I'm reading
That's
that
a big book.
Mahabharata. Yeah, they're but Mahabharata, so it's so vast, it's huge. I'm not even like really deep into it yet, just by reading. I've listened to the audiobook once, and it was it's great. It really makes me want to read it fully, but it's taken me forever to read it.
Is that
But
your supervisor up in that tower up there? The
yeah,
kitty?
right. Oh
What's
yeah,
his or her
his
name?
name's Boone.
Boone. Yeah, we have
Yeah,
two cats. They actually own the house. We just live here. You know how that is?
right.
I saw this one meme that had, we're cat people, so there was a cartoon with had cats that one cat was on the mantle of the fireplace, one cat was in the window, one cat was on the sofa, one cat was on the chair, and each cat was saying, "I am God. I am God. I am God." And then the caption of the cartoon said, "This is why cats can't have an organized religion." So yeah, they're very independent like that. Anyway, we're just going to start reading here. Enough chit chat. Get into the nectar. Okay, this is Krishna's illusory leelas. This is a kind of an interesting anucheta because it talks about how the disappearance and appearance of the Yadu dynasty and all that and his disappearance are just illusory. They're just like a play, like an actor on a stage, or a magician that cuts off somebody's head and then burns the body, and then all of a sudden he produces his body again. That's
Mm.
Krishna. He can do that because, he creates the whole cosmic manifestation. So the description of the Yadava's contrary disposition on Yatabhava up to the bewilderment and defeat of Sri Arjuna is, which is found at the end of the 11th canto, is of course only illusory. It is to be understood that such an illusion was arranged by Bhagavan, who had descended for the welfare of the cows and the Brahmanas, to make known the irrevocability of the Brahminical curse. You know about the curse of the Brahmanas that got rid of the Yadu dynasty?
Yeah, when they feigned that asking the sages about
Yeah,
the pregnancy
right.
went
Yeah.
through the rule.
That was all Krishna's arrangement too, just to get rid of the
Yeah.
Yadu dynasty because they were too powerful. So they had to get rid of Lord Krishna had to bring them back to Godhead. So it is also observed in the Vyasa Gita of the Kurma Purana in the context of right conduct, Sadachara, while describing the glory of a chaste wife, that Ravana's kidnapping of Sita was illusory. The episode that concerns the Yadavas should be regarded in the same way. In that very context, in the 11th canto itself, Bhagavan Sri Krishna instructed Daruka in a corresponding manner. You can read the next two paragraphs here.
As for yourself, however, be situated in my dharma, become fixed in knowledge, and recognizing all this to be a creation of my Maya, become indifferent and be peaceful. Srimad Bhagavatam 11:30-49, 778. This verse is explained as follows. But you, Daruka, are fixed in knowledge, jnana nishta, meaning that you have realized the essential truth of my mas. To be situated in my dharma, mama dharman astaya, means to have faith or trust in my essential nature of protecting and nourishing my devotees, and also of remaining in the company of my associates who are my equals. You should recognize this etam, meaning the entire ma of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, Musala ma, that has just now been displayed to be but a creation of my rindid, uh, like a magical performance, Indrajala. On the basis of this recognition, become indifferent, upeksha, upekshika, to the bereavement, uh, upasamam, or in other words, freedom from any mental disturbance.
Yeah, the bereavement resulting from the superficial perception of what had happened. Um, okay, let me just continue here. The word "to," however, is used to show contrast, implies that while others may become bewildered in this regard, it is not all befitting for you to succumb to such illusion. In this connection, it is to be discerned that since Srimati Daruka, see, there's errors in this. This is actually a Word document that was scanned and
Oh, okay.
you know OCR.
Oh, I'm pretty familiar with reading stuff like that, but
Yeah, yeah. I think
not
it's Sri Daruka himself is well known to have descended from Vaikuntha because the pronoun etam, quote, this, end quote, refers to events that had taken place contemporaneous to Krishna's statement. Any other interpretation of the verse is inaccessible to immediate understanding. Go ahead and read the next paragraph. This is a
commentary
commentary.
beginning.
This is a commentary by Satyananda Das, is the person that translated the book.
Okay. So beginning from Anucheta 117, Sri Jiva Goswami has established that the associates of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Gopas and Yadavas, are all eternal and equal to him in qualities and prowess, being manifestations of his intrinsic potency. A doubt is now raised in this regard. In chapter 30 of the 11th canto, there is a description of the Yadavas fighting with each other after drinking Mayureyaka, a type of intoxicant. As a consequence, they were all killed. How then can it be said that the Yadavas are Krishna's eternal associates, who are transcendental beings as powerful as Krishna himself?
In other words, how could they be killed if they're just as powerful as Krishna? Sri Jiva Goswami replies that this episode was not real. It was an illusory performance to fulfill the words of the sages who had cursed Samba and Krishna's other sons, ordaining that the Yadu race would soon be destroyed. Krishna thus demonstrated that the words of the sages do not go in vain. I guess the moral of that story is don't offend a Brahmanas. Be careful when you're around Brahmanas, because they can actually destroy your whole, spiritual creepers and also even your life. That's what happened to Parikshit. He garlanded that sage who was in meditation because he wanted a glass of water, and he the sage, his son found his father like that, and he cursed him to die within 7 days. Of course, if that hadn't happened, he would never spoken the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the best book in the universe. So that's also Krishna's arrangement. Krishna is a support. Let's see. Demonstrated the words of the sages do not go in vain. Similarly, he provided justification for those who of atheistic temperament to deny his godhead. In other words, he fulfills the desires of the atheists as well. He everyone approaches him. If you want to go to hell, you can go to hell forever if you want to, or you can go to heaven. Whatever you want, Krishna will give it to you. Krishna is the support of all, including even those who oppose him or disavow his supremacy. And on this account, he conducts his play in such a way that their convictions can be maintained. Additionally, this Leela was exhibited to teach people that the body is temporary and that even great people ultimately have to die. One should therefore give up material attachments. Go ahead.
Sri Jiva Goswami cites an example of the illusory nature of some of Bhagavan's other Leelas. He says that the Sita whom Ravana kidnapped kidnapped was not the real one, but an illusory Sita created by Bhagavan Rama's Maya. The real Sita was carried away by Agni, the fire god, and was returned to Rama after his victory over Ravana. When Rama asked Sita to prove her chastity by entering into the fire, his intention was, in fact, to retrieve the real Sita from Agni and to withdraw the Mayika Sita.
The illusory nature of the Yadava's self-inflicted extermination is also understood from Krishna's statement to Daruka, his chariot driver. In this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:30-49, he clearly says that all this, etam, that had just recently transpired was his Maya, or illusory creation. The pronoun etam, the feminine accusative form of etat, refers to something contiguous in time or space, as it is said, quote, the pronoun idam is used to indicate that which is proximate, and etat is used for an object that is closer still. The pronoun adas is used for remote objects, while tat is used for things outside the range of perception. Go ahead and
Mm.
read the next two paragraphs.
I like this logic that just the grammar has. It's so
Yeah, it's the
logical.
grammar. The grammar was so scientific. I mean, Lord
Yeah.
Chaitanya wrote a whole book of grammar when he was like a teenager, and all of the words related to Krishna. It's
Mm.
amazing. It's still in existence. It's still in extent, that book that Lord Chaitanya wrote back 500
Oh,
years ago.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Gotta get that book. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's translated into English because, there's not really a lot of English Bengali words that are synonymous, like bhakti. It really has no English translation. I mean,
Yeah.
not an
All these
exact
translations
translation.
I read, they use different words for these words like dharma and bhakti. And the more I read so many different translations, you get a kind of, a different sense of what it means.
Yeah, the real
These different
import
words.
though is revealed from the words themselves. Each one of these words of the Vedas, they're aphorisms. They have spiritual potency. So Krishna he invests all his potencies in each word, and so each single word and each verse has a numerous different meanings that are meant by Krishna, and you can go on analyzing this. Just like Prabhupada's spiritual master in the 1920s or 30s, he was speaking on the Bhagavatam, the first verse, Janmadhyasya, the first verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 111. You know how long it took for him to get through that verse? A
I
month.
heard. Yeah, wow.
It took him a
Yeah.
month to go through just one verse, and there's 18,000 verses. So,
Yeah.
my audiobook mentor asked, I read the Bhagavatam 3 or 4 times because I've read different versions of it with different commentaries. There's a commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's a commentary by Jiva Goswami, Krama Sandarbha. So all these different commentaries, they're either of the entire book or just the 10th canto. But the he asked me to read this one Purana called the Padma Purana. He said,
Mm.
I only know one person that has read this entire book. So of all the devotees he knows, he's like a worldwide preacher. He's living in Eastern Europe right now. He's from Ukraine, but he knows a lot of devotees. And he said, because it's a long book, the Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. You know how many verses the Padma Purana has?
What is it?
55,000.
Oh, wow.
Of
Well, yeah.
course, it doesn't have
Mahabharata.
all the purports and stuff, so it's not as long, and it's not nearly as long as the Bhagavatam with all Prabhupada's purports. But it's really good.
Mahabharata says 100,000 verses for Mahabharata.
100,000. Yeah, yeah. That's amazing, Like once like they used to ask Bhakti Siddhanta, who used to have a printing press back in the 20s and 30s, is how can you how can you like write about subjects that are going on in the spiritual, realm, how can you talk about spiritual stuff, like all these newspapers and magazines, they're talking about endless crap that's going on in the material world. And Bhaktisiddhanta said that the spiritual world is endless. You can't even end it. You can't understand the end of it. And Prabhupada
Mm.
liked reading his own books, because there's different meanings that come out every time you read it. It's always new and fresh. One time Prabhupada was in Mexico City, he was reading his own newly published Bhagavatam canto, and he called Hridayananda, who was one of his disciples, who was his personal servant at the time. He called him into the room while he was reading. He said, "Have you read these books?" And Hridayananda said, "Yes, Sir Prabhupada, I've read the books." He said, Aren't they wonderful? He wrote them. But he was so blown away by his own books that he was like astounded, you know. So that's the nature of these books. I mean, even Prabhupada, the person that wrote them was completely blown away by how that they're new and fresh and reveal something different every single time you read it. You
Hmm.
know, if people read a newspaper or magazine, and it's speaking about that one devotee who Prabhupada asked into his room, he said that the way the karmis, the ordinary people, start their day, they get up and they read a newspaper, they have breakfast, uh, which is like a fried chicken embryo with with pig guts, like bacon, and then they wash it down with liquid dirt in the form of coffee, and then they smoke a cigarette and then read the newspaper, and then they throw the newspaper away because it's worthless after the day. Of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam and all these other books have been around for thousands and thousands, millions of years, and they never get old, so that's the
Yeah, you
difference.
know, you say that I'm reading what I'm as I'm reading the Mahabharata. These pastimes between the Pandavas and all this Vedic lore is so fresh and so entertaining and so relatable. Like I don't know. I just feel like it's more more attractive than any TV show or movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
It has
yeah, for sure.
it has everything that's in those, but just more with this Vedic knowledge. That's so like and as I'm reading this Vedic knowledge, my actions. I'm not perfect, but like at work, man, like I'm advancing just by following the principles. If like worshiping the super soul, doing my Vanashram Dharma and stuff like just the advice that's given in these scriptures, hearing it, it's entertaining and at the same time so like helpful. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
it was actually created for entertainment. Especially the Mahabharata was addressed to, because philosophy and like the Upanishads and all these various philosophical scriptures, they're not really understandable to, ordinary people,
mhm.
so the Mahabharata though, it has everything. It has like
Yeah,
politics, it has violence. I mean, the Ramayana. You've heard of Star Wars. I know you're pretty young, but you know Star Wars, right?
yeah. I've heard that. I've heard. I think I know what you're talking about. That George Lucas maybe based that on
Yeah,
or
see,
Ramayana.
he has his ranch, the Lucas Ranch, and he invited this one college professor. His name is Joseph Campbell, and he's deceased now, but this is back in the 70s, or yeah, the 70s. And he invited him because he was a expert on myth, and he had a very popular college program where the students would learn about myth. Now, myth can be real, it can be truthful, it can be a fictional myth. That's the definition of it. But he was reciting this myth to George Lucas. He liked it so much he created a movie, and that's called Star Wars. And a devotee actually wrote a book about the creation of that. It's called The Jedi and the Lotus. That's by Stephen Rosen, Satyaraj. He wrote a book about it. But so because he liked the story, the story is what is attractive, and it's actually true. It's a true
Hmm.
story, and it just follows all the different characters. The character Ram, of course, that is what's his name, Luke Skywalker, and Sita, that's Princess Leia, and that big monkey that was Chewbacca.
Oh yeah, okay. That's
That
Hanuman.
would be Hanuman.
Mm.
So he made that whole thing up from that, and now it's like a Disney franchise. I think Krishna should get a cut of that. He should donate like a certain percentage to all the temples. Then he would receive some benefit. But anyway, let's go on here. I guess I'll read the next two paragraphs here. Or you were going to read it, right?
Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah, go
Another
ahead.
example of another example of an illusory uh Leela is found in the final chapter of the story of the Pandavas. where King Yudhisthira received the news of the destruction of the Yadavas and of Krishna's departure from earth and return to his own abode. He installed Parikshit as his successor. He renounced his kingdom along with the royal dress and insignia and set out for the Himalayas. For his four brothers and wife Draupadi followed him. A stray dog also started to tag along and joined the procession. As they ascended higher and higher into the mountains, Draupadi and the other Pandavas collapsed and died one by one. When only Yudhisthira was left standing, Indra appeared on his chariot to escort him to heaven, informing him that his wife and brothers had already arrived there and were waiting for him. Yudhisthira, however, refused to go without the dog, and it was then revealed that the dog was in fact Dharma personified Yudhisthira's real father, who had been testing him. Dharma resumed his original form and blessed the king.
So Yudhisthira departed with Indra, but when he arrived in the heavenly realm, he saw neither his brothers nor his wife. When he inquired about as to their whereabouts, one of the devas ordered a celestial messenger, Devadutta, to lead him to the place where his brothers could be found. As Yudhisthira followed the Devadutta, he observed that the path was terribly inauspicious. It was covered in darkness, reeked with a foul odor, and was strewn with hair and bones. Mosquitoes and flies buzzed around, and there were dead bodies lying on the ground, and ferocious scavenger beasts were lurking nearby. Soon Yudhisthira realized that he was being shown the various divisions of hell. Feeling giddy from the stench, the king asked the Devadutta how much further he still had to walk. The Devadutta replied that it was not necessary for him to go any further and advised him to turn back. Yudhisthira was about to agree when he became aware of the piteous requests of the people suffering there who asked him not to abandon them. They declared that his simple presence had mitigated their suffering. Go ahead and read the next. Whoops. Next, till the end of the chapter here.
Hearing their appeals, Yudhisthira paused and asked them who they were. To his dismay, they replied that they were his brothers, wife, and relatives. Hearing this, Yudhisthira felt greatly disturbed and confused. He could not understand why the sinful Duryodhana was enjoying heaven while his pious brothers were suffering in hell. He instructed the Devadutta to leave and tell Indra that he would be remaining with his brothers. And at at that time, all the devas headed by Indra suddenly appeared, and the entire hellish scene disappeared, being transformed into heaven. Then Dharma informed Yudhisthira that this had been his final test. He further said, "O king, O son of Kunti, your brothers do not deserve to be in hell. This was but an illusion created by Indra, the king of the Devas." Mahabharata 18:336.
Yeah. So that's a test. That's a major test. If he found out all of his brothers, you know, were suffering in hell, and then he realized that his brother, that his cousin brother, Duryodhana was enjoying in heaven, yet all his brothers and his wife were all suffering in hell. And that was just another illusion, but it was meant to test him. Have you ever heard of the biblical story Job?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a similar test, or like Abraham, God, God tested Abraham. He wanted him to sacrifice. They did perform sacrifices back then, and they've been
Sacrifice
doing
his
that
son.
for a long time. And there's a Bob Dylan song. You're too young to know who Bob Dylan is. I just saw that movie, uh, Complete Unknown. Really excellent movie. Recommend it highly. But my friend is a singer-songwriter, is a huge fan of Bob Dylan. He's written about a couple hundred songs. I refer to his musical genre as transcendental Bob Dylan-esque. So he's really good, but I took him as a treat because, he doesn't have any money. If you're a musician, unless you're Taylor frickin' Swift, you don't have any money. He goes around to different, uh, like old age homes and does he entertains the old people with his folk music. So that's his the way he makes a living. So he doesn't have any money, but he, Bob Dylan wrote this song uh, about Highway 61. He actually had a motorcycle accident then, and it was about that pastime of Abraham, God being testing Abraham. And it goes, God said, Abraham, kill me a son. Abe said, man, you got to be putting me on. God said, no. Abe said, what? He said, and God said, you can do whatever you want, Abe, but next time you see me coming, you better run. Head on down on Highway 61. So, God tests his, don't think that those tests won't happen to us too. These things will happen to us. Krishna will test us to see how faithful we are. Sometimes, I'm just such a wuss that, if I have a hangnail, I won't, do anything or something. But, like Prabhupada said that if you're a real devotee, doesn't care what happens. There could be a nuclear holocaust. Prabhupada was asked by his disciples, what do we do when the bombs start falling? Because he said that they'll eventually use these bombs. If you have the weapons, they're going to be used. And so they asked him, what happens when the bombs start falling, so Prabhupada? And he said, Shadari Krishna.
Mm.
That's it. That's the only shelter. So that's what we have to do is just take shelter of Krishna. And it doesn't matter. You can be in heaven or in hell. It doesn't matter where a devotee is because he does the same thing. Whether he's in heaven or in hell, he's just serving Krishna. He's surrendered to Krishna 24/7. It's like
Mhm.
they give the example of a wheat thresher. You know what a wheat thresher? You ever heard of that? It's a thing that
Yeah,
threshes the wheat out of the stalk and it separates the grain from the chaff. And so if you put a wheat thresher in heaven, it'll thresh wheat. If you put it in hell, it'll thresh wheat. It does the same thing whether in heaven and hell. So it doesn't matter to a devotee whether he's in heaven or hell. He'll do the same thing. He'll just serve Krishna and surrender to Krishna. And then he doesn't even care if he's in heaven or in hell.
mm.
So you have any questions about this? We have about 5 minutes left.
Um, no, but this is enjoyable. I really like the topic. And the Mahabharata is so good. It's such a good book. I'm like enamored with it, and it inspires me. And I'm just in the Yoga Parva, where they're they're trying to deter the Kauravas from wanting to fight. Duryodhan's really stubborn, and no matter what, his dad even is like, Dhritarashtra saying like, I don't want to, we don't want to fight, and he's insisting, and they're talking about how doomed they are, and it's really entertaining. I know like when I heard the audiobook, they're gonna really start going back and forth, like talking smack, and
Yeah.
that and my mouth drop open wide. I'm like, oh my god, it's so entertaining, and then
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, like
violence.
Duryodhana
Oh my
was
god.
very, 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 very adamant, and his father was blind, so he accepted everything that he said. They actually, but Dhritarashtra was talked to by Vidura. Vidura was a great soul, and he told him, you got to get out of here. This was after they had been defeated and all his sons were killed, and he was in the palace with Bhima and all the other Pandavas, and he said, "You're just like a dog that's taking the scraps of your enemies. Bhima killed your own son, and here you are. You're so old. Your teeth are loose. Your liver's faulty. You're coughing up mucus." And you're still trying to enjoy, you should get out of here. You should go to the forest, and he finally convinced him to go. But, before that, when he was trying to make some negotiations to create peace, he didn't want to do that because he said, my mind is, I know what you're saying is the truth, but it's like lightning in my brain. And because he's so attached to his son, he has to do what he tells him because it won't stay in his heart. He won't accept the attachment to family members is very, very strong for most people, so
Yeah.
that's why a great devotee like Queen Kunti, when Krishna came and he was about to leave, she said, you know, so many calamities, you've helped us out of these things. I wish that those calamities would happen again and again, because
Mm,
if they happen, I know you're going to show up and rectify the situation. And so let the calamities come again and again, because therefore we'll see you again and again, and therefore we won't have to suffer repeated birth and death.
mm,
So she was, great soul, and she was even willing. She said, "Please separate me from my family members. Uh, cut this knot of attachment in my heart, and so I can only be attached to you, because Krishna is actually the soul of our souls, and so whatever feeling we have for our family members, that's also coming from Krishna. But if it's not really related to Krishna, if Krishna's not in the center of our family and we're just trying to enjoy our family by in and of itself, then it's called a skin disease.
mm,
Prabhupada calls it skin disease. And so we're not really attached to Krishna. There's two different kinds of householders. There's grihasta. Grihasta means Krishna's in the center of the family, and then there's a grihamedi. The enjoyment is the center of the family. And
mm,
so, Prabhupada, I just listened to a purport of a song that Prabhupada sang back in 1967. He recorded this purport. I've got all of his audiobooks too. I mean, we really recommend to get those too, because there's a ton of audio of Prabhupada speaking way back from 1966 on through 77. But he's talking about how, we're attached to our family members. We want to see our little children smile, or want to see my wife happy or something. But this is all what he calls chapala sukha. It's flickering happiness, and it's like a drop of water in the desert. We need an ocean of happiness. We want an
mhm,
ocean, but you can't, dry up the desert by a drop of water. So, and similarly, our souls will never be satisfied until we can, get the ocean, swim in the ocean of Krishna's Leela. Anyway,
I've been listening to this book called Madhurya Kandambini or something, and it
Madhurya
is
Kandapini.
so yeah, it is so good, and it's so like so it's so I've been recently listening to it, and it's talking about the offenses to the nam aparads,
Right.
and and it's talking about different levels of this of symptoms of devotion, and it's really fascinating because it says right in the very beginning of the book I was listening to, it says that um it it can show you exactly where you're at in your bhakti and give
Hey,
you an
we're
idea
going
of
to be
where.
cut off in about 4 seconds here, but thank you for
Oh,
for
Hare Krishna.
thanks for